So I wanted to clarify the EBNF parse tree issues that we had the other day for homework 2 and probably for the practice midterm. Just make sure you know right before the midterm happens. We can use the curly braces anytime it means 0 more repetitions of X, right? If X is whatever is inside the curly braces. In EBNF, fine. I will agree to that. Now, with a caveat. If you did the expression grammar or the S grammar in practice midterm, so it looks something like this, where note there is no recursion whatsoever, that's fine. With another caveat that we'll describe in a minute here. Because what this defines an ambiguous rule in the grammar. So we don't know what that means because there's no way to discern how this parse tree is going to look if we have something like A plus A plus A. There's just no way to do that. My argument for using the square brackets with explicit recursion is I don't have to worry about that. It is an unambiguous grammar. I don't have to have any extra things that tell me exactly what I meant by it. It is defined within the grammar. Alright? Now, if you have recursion in here, that is a completely different language than what is described here. If you recurse back to EXP in there, that means that you not only can build up a molx plus molx inside of this by replacing this part, if this was EXP only, but also that you can then have multiple of plus EXP as well. So that is giving you an infinitely listing that infinitely long, as well as expanding that infinitely down the tree. So it actually is stating that this language is far more than what was originally intended. Now, that being said, if we do this, we have to understand that we have ambiguity, and then we have no definition of what associativity is when we have a rule defined like this. So we actually have to define the convention, right, using some sort of explicit like paragraph that describes it, which the paragraph is actually could be just one sentence. Note, when we see this, or something that looks similar to this, that's going to be used for left associative operators only. Now, you could also possibly state that if you don't want to use the explicit recursion at all, you have another, if you make the opposite way where you have the curly brace ending at the operator and starting at the beginning, then creating a list on that side, that can also be used for right associative. Actually, I would argue that you can't do that at all. You can only do this for left associative, and then for anything else, you have to use that because they're equivalent. Regardless of where you have the curly brace in this case, it doesn't matter. You just have to define which one this is. So you cannot have both right and left associative operators defined as in a list form in the same language. You have to choose it for one, and then for the other one, do explicit recursive rules. And so I actually made that mistake myself because of this issue. And so what we'll look at is we'll look at the actual operators, right? So actually I have to go around this. You cannot do this. Your only choice is what we see here. You can have either the complete, this is for homework number 2, you can either have the complete solution where you use recursion for everything, as I've defined here, or you can have one where you state what the left, you have for the right recursive, right associative operator, we define explicit recursion, and for the for all other operators, you define that you're going to do this, use the list-based approach, and you do that for left associative. But you cannot do it for both. You only get one or the other, right? You either did it all as with recursion, or you have the right associative or left associative are recursive, and your right associative is not. So we could actually create a separate one, just like this, right? And we'll make this our or with both recursion or recursive and non-recursive rules, right? Where we say that instead we're going to make it if we see something that looks like this, we're going to use that only for right associative, which kind of defeats the whole point of doing this. We get rid of this one, make this plus, and then we call this the right recursive, okay, or the right associative, and then here we have to get rid of this part, and we have to, basically we're going to just copy this thing up here. If we're going to do it this way, then we will. We can call it that, and call it done, without replacement. Alright, these are the only 3 viable options, okay, for this. These are the 3 viable answers. Everything else is of course you can name them however you choose, but this type of approach is the only 3 viable approaches, mainly because they all explain the language as originally intended. If you choose to do a different way, that's on you, of course, but I cannot guarantee that it will be correct. You can come and try to argue with me, but if we actually look at, we can see that these will all guarantee the same language will be expressed by this grammar, and that's due to the lack of recursion inside of the curly braces when we see them. This can also be stated on the practice midterm as well, and I have to make a correction as well. You cannot do this, but what we could do is replace that with this, and then get rid of this. Actually, we'll do that. Alright, so these are the 3 possible answers for your midterm practice exam for that question number 8E. So I will give you that. If you did that, if you choose to do it this way, then that's awesome. If not, well, that's how it goes. Let's see. What is that right? Yeah, that's right. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email or stop by, and I will talk to you all later.